Theater 20 years ago is kind of similar to what we have now. We had alternative theater in place. We had a number of opportunities. Smaller theaters are producing better work, I think, is what's happened in the last 20 years.
20 years ago was the last time I was deeply involved in the community theater. At the time, we had the Playhouse and Drama Workshop primarily were the big players in town. And so you kind of went back and forth. If you were a regular on the stage in those days, you'd do a couple of shows at the Playhouse and move over to the workshop, do a couple of shows, and it was a rotation of pretty much the same faces from play to play.
When I moved back to Des Moines in 2002, I immediately dived into local theater. The Playhouse, Drama Workshop, Ingersoll Junior Theater. And what we saw there was obviously, especially with the companies I just named, a lot of classical theater, American modern musicals. It was pretty much similar fare for similar types of audiences.
Well, we all have to remember the wonderful actors who are not with us anymore, like Kate Goldman and Mary Jane Bookey and Curtis Page, Terry Page, Ruth Stokesbury, Ruth Ludwig. There are still people who aren't doing anything anymore, perhaps in theater, but wonderful actors like John Thompson, Mary Brubaker, Marina Mostrowski.
After working in about 100 different productions over the last 12 years, one of the things I've noticed as being a challenge to attract audiences is to understand who you want in your audience. That has always been a problem with all theater companies. Sometimes we forget that there's a business part of show business and understanding who our demographic is. Once a theater company is able to find what their demographic is, then they know what kind of plays to select, what kind of actors they have available, and then they start attracting more and more audience members and more actors to produce theater.
Building an audience for local community theater is always a huge challenge. There are so many entertainment options open for the typical theater goer, movie goer. They tend to be the same audience. To draw a steady stream of audience to see local theater, especially when they have so many professional theater companies coming through town, is always a challenge. You have to depend on free media, in some cases reviews from the Des Moines Register or promotions on local radio stations, TV stations, but it's tough. It's tough to build an audience for community theater.
Local theater in Des Moines the last 10 years has been phenomenal. I think the increase in activity began back in 1979, actually, when the Civic Center was built. But after that, when we have Stage West, that began, and then a few years later, the Iowa Repertory Theater, and then most recently, the Des Moines Social Club, we get such a variety of plays as well as venues and things that we can see.
Since 2002, Des Moines theater scene has seen a wonderful rebirth and blooming. We've seen 10 years ago the Iowa Fringe Festival making its first steps into the area. We've seen younger theater companies come in. We've seen Zach Mannheimer come in from New York. So we've seen Tallgrass Theater Company. We've seen Des Moines Social Club. We have Repertory Theater of Iowa, which is growing. We have Matt Martin, who's developing wonderful, diverse theater for a diverse community that like Des Moines. It's just a fantastic opportunity and a fantastic time to be with theater in Des Moines area.
One of the differences in the theater then and the theater now is the type of auditioner. It used to be that the fella down the block had seen someone in a play and thought, well, I can do that. So would come and audition and maybe get a role. Then he was trained in the process. Maybe he took smaller roles, but he was trained on the job. Now, the Des Moines area and surrounding areas are rich with almost professionally trained actors who do this as an avocation. And sometimes, if they were paid, they would be making full-time jobs. Of course, we don't do that yet.
If I could take you back to 1969, I'm a 18-year-old freshman at Drake University, and there was a production of Marat Sade put on by the drama workshop. At that time was working out of a church up on Cottage Grove. That production inspired me to get involved in theater. It was that powerful and that overwhelming. I didn't know such things happened on stage, and it really got me interested in performing and being involved in theater.
Locally, one of the shows that I can remember being one of my favorites was Our Town. I had directed that myself 3 or 4 times, and I thought, oh dear, do I really want to see that play again? But it was a fantastic production. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf was another, Next to Normal, which again I saw that on Broadway, and I thought, how can they do this at Stage West at the Little Stoner Theater? But it was a fantastic production.
Well, one that I was in at Drake University back in '86 was Hair. It had not been done for years and years and years, and we did the whole naked thing. And you know, there was some controversy, you know, these college students getting naked on stage. Somewhat controversial considering it was the 80s, but it was well received, well done, tasteful, and pertinent for the show.
Well, I think one of the things that we try to do at Stage West, and I'm just happy to see it continue, is the connection between theater companies and local colleges and universities. Our connections both with the faculty and with the students has been a growth opportunity both for the students and for our audiences. We've been able to expand our offerings, and it adds a level of professionalism in their theater education that we haven't seen before, and I just think it's very healthy for the entire city.
I think there could be more diversity in our theater in Des Moines. We do have plays sort of appealing to the African American audience primarily, such as the recent one of Soldier's Play. But I'm wondering, we have a large Asian community in Des Moines. We have a large Latino community in the area, and I don't think we are doing anything to serve those people. And if we got them interested in the theater, they would come to other plays as well. So I think that would be one area that we could grow.
Well, I think local theater, when you think about the arts and the culture on a holistic basis, well, local theater becomes very, very important. As you study communities across the country, what you generally find is that there is a really good balance of local theater and major theater, if you will. So I think that balance becomes pretty important, because how else are you going to allow the local artists to be able to display their wares, if you will?
When I think about what advice I give, certainly I'll put on my community foundation hat. As a funder, we always really like to see organizations come together and collaborate. And I will say, when we see an application come in from organizations that are working together to offer something to the community, especially when it comes to the arts, that's always going to score higher. So my advice would be to continue collaborating and partnering.
When you think of New York having the Tonys, Washington, D.C. having the Helen Hayes Award, Chicago having the Joseph Jefferson, and Los Angeles having the Ovations, why not have the Cloris Awards?
When I heard about the Cloris Awards, it put a smile on my face immediately. I think it's hugely creative. It's doing just what we need to do in the community, and that's lift up the things that are working well and take time to celebrate. We don't take enough time to celebrate the things that we're doing really well and the successes, so I'm really looking forward to this event.
I've been around long enough that the Cloris Awards are a time that's been waiting to happen. It's been a concept that's been laying dormant in the cultural scene, and I think we had the right meeting of water, nurturing participants, and definitely the caliber of talent. And it's always fun to call up Cloris Leachman and get her hearty endorsement for using her name on this project.
Well, the Cloris Awards is an important step, and we need to recognize that people are doing extraordinary work. It needs to be independently judged, and we've set up a system to do that. Very important step, that people's work not only gets reviewed and recognized, but that the better work gets recognized via nominations and the actual awards.
The risk with any award is that when you present an award, someone else is not getting an award. So I hope that people understand that the Cloris Awards are really an opportunity to highlight talent that is here in town and celebrate the entire community. I will say, as a judge, the decisions were very, very difficult. When we looked at all of the shows that we stacked up for the year, there was a lot of talent that is right here in Des Moines. So it's another opportunity to showcase that and to let people know that the scene is thriving and growing, and I hope the awards help accomplish the goals in the next few years.